women are more picky in their mate choices than men, especially sexually. That's the case in every culture. And it's not surprising because women have more at stake sexually than men do, per episode, because men don't get pregnant, obviously. And so that female pickiness that's the case. That's definitely true. So, but what you have to understand is that what do you expect from women? If you got pregnant because you had sex, you'd be pretty damn choosy too. So, clue in a bit. And then, well, don't they find you attractive? Well, maybe you're not. Have you paid attention to how you dress? Do you have a plan? Are you as educated as you could be? Are you a liar? Are you a rabid pornography user? Because maybe that's undermining your motivation to seek out a woman and grow yourself up. It's like, if you're rejected constantly and you're out there really trying, because that's another thing to ask yourself is, well, how many women have you actually asked out? That's actually to some degree an archetype that men get confused with women. And, that's the witchy part of women. And that's the part that's attractive, but rejecting. So many men are petrified by women. They won't approach them at all. And are you so sure that you're not picking women who will certainly reject you because you're trying to bat out of your league? Because you might be. So, and I'm speaking about this as a clinician too, because I had plenty of men in my practice who were, radically unsuccessful with women. I've suggested to my young male viewers continually that if they're rejected by all women out of hand, that they have to take that burden onto themselves and not assume that all the women are wrong and that what they should strive to do. Well, the probability that you're right and 4 billion people are wrong is 1 in 4 billion. It's rather low. And so you have to take that as a brute fact in some sense. And it might be unfair in that women, like men, use a set of criteria that you could describe as arbitrary in some sense to make their judgments, but there's some things you're not going to win an argument against, and that's definitely one of them. If you're chronically rejected by people, it's often because of your own insufficiencies. Is it a problem in the objective world, or is it a problem in your field of being? And it's very useful to think that way, because you might ask, well, what could you do to improve yourself? You can't just brush it off as, oh, well, no one likes me, but really I'm okay. It's like, no, wrong. If everyone rejects you, there's probably something wrong, and it's probably deep and difficult, and it's going to be horrible to fix. I would say to young men who are irritated at women is, if you're irritated at women, as a class of creature, there's something wrong with you, because they're right. You're wrong. They're right to not pick you. If they're not picking you, it's because they're right. Now, that might get... No, that's a terrible thing to say, and I know perfectly well. It wasn't like I was particularly successful with girls when I was young, so I know what that rejection is like. I know what that fear is like. I don't know it as well as some men know it, because I wasn't rejected outright. Well, let's step one step backwards. The first question might be, why should you even bother improving yourself? And I think the answer to that is something like, so you don't suffer any more stupidly than you have to. And maybe so others don't have to either. It's something like that. Like there's a real injunction at the bottom of it. One of the things I've suggested to young men is that if they concentrated on making themselves productive and generous, that the probability that that will increase their ability to find a mate is extraordinarily high. I do think that's the case, and that advantage accrues as men mature. How do I make myself into the perfect date? You answer that question, and you will not have any problem answering the previous question. It's like, what do I want in a partner? If I offered everything I could to a partner, who would I be? Ask that question. Just ask. Just ask yourself, okay, I have to be the person that women would want. That's not a bad start. Reasonably good physical shape, productive, generous, honest, willing to delay gratification. So you dance with a woman. It's like, what's she doing? What are you two doing? Well, it's a pattern. There's patterns happening around you. That's the music. Patterns of being. That's the music. Now, can you align yourself with the patterns of being gracefully? That's what she's checking out. Then can you do that with her? And then can you do that in a playful and attentive manner and keep your bloody hands to yourself for at least a minute? Maybe you're having a conversation where, I don't know what you're trying to do. Maybe you're trying to impress the person you're talking to. So you're not listening to them at all. You're just thinking about what you're going to say next. Okay, so that's not this. This is, you might have something to tell me. And so I'm going to listen on the off chance that you'll tell me something that would really be useful for me to know. Once you've got your mind and your emotions together, and once you're acting that out, then you can extend what you're willing to consider yourself and start fixing up the things that are part of your broader extent. I bet you there's not a person in this room who hasn't rejected someone because they were too nice to them. Something like that. Person's no challenge. It's something like that. You want someone who, you can get along with them, but now and then they bite you and you think, oh, that's interesting.
The standards of women today and they're being elevated, that it's not so much a focus of pointing the finger at them not choosing them, but more so looking in the mirror and asking themselves what can they do to improve themselves to be so desirable,
Be a little stronger, be a little stronger, dress a little better, speak a little more clearly, aim a little higher, and practice that, and that'll work. Now, I know that that's more difficult for some people than others because some people bear incredibly difficult developmental burdens. And I'm not saying that this is easy, but I'm saying that it's a useful reaction. The correlation between perceived mate attractiveness with regards to women perceiving men, the correlation between socioeconomic status and perceived attractiveness is about 0.6, which is a higher correlation than the correlation between general cognitive ability and grades. And I use that as an example because that's one of the most robust and powerful findings in the social sciences. Whereas the correlation between socioeconomic status and perceived mate attractiveness for women by men is 0 or slightly negative. So it's a walloping difference, and that's associated with the proclivity of women to preferentially mate across hierarchies and up, and men to mate across hierarchies and down.
People are also evaluating each other for such things as intelligence and personality and character. You could say in some sense the men are competing to be the best man, and the women are watching the male competition to take the man who wins on the presupposition that he wouldn't win if he wasn't the best man.
I had one man in particular, he was so afraid of women he couldn't use the phone. He was too afraid of everyone to use the phone. And he'd been bullied like mad, and he had his problems. So I know what this is like, but if you were better, you'd be more successful with women. So you have to have that in your mind.